1974. A hot summer in Texas. A van full of friends. What could possibly go wrong? Tobe Hooper's original Texas Chainsaw Massacre changed the horror game forever. Period. But let's be real, the franchise has been through the meat grinder since. Sequels, remakes, prequels that don't really make sense. It's been a total bloodbath of quality until now. Well, at least we hope. Yes, that's right, Leatherface is back, baby. A24, the studio that gave us Hereditary, Midsummer, just won a massive bidding war for the rights. But they aren't just making a movie, oh no, they're building an all-new horror universe, starting with a long-form TV series. And that's where the real meat is. So is Leatherface finally getting the prestige treatment he deserves? Or is A24 about to upset a franchise fanbase all over again? Sharpen your hooks, guys, because we are breaking down what we know about A24's Texas Chainsaw. The official teasers, the cast, the story, and of course our most unhinged bloody theories as to where this franchise is heading. This is First Slash. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Alright, let's rewind the tape all the way back to where this chaos actually started. In 1974, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre drops, and whether it meant to or not, it basically rewired the entire horror genre. It's the blueprint for every slasher trope we know and love. Attractive people meeting a gruesome end at the hands of a total psychopath? What can I say? We're creatures of habit, and we still love to see it. Now, Tobe Hooper didn't make this to be fun or slick. This wasn't some polished Hollywood production, it was shot on a shoestring budget in the brutal Texas heat. And honestly, you can feel it. It's got that grimy documentary style look that just makes for an uncomfortable watch. The setup is simple. A group of friends head into rural Texas and slowly realise they've wandered into the wrong neighbourhood, cuz. Yeah, like the worst neighbourhood. Unbeknownst to them, they've parked next door to a family of serial killers. Enter Leatherface, a man wearing a mask made of actual human skin, wielding a chainsaw, and you know the drill, he starts picking them off, one by one, in true slasher fashion. True to its scrappy indie roots, this movie is a complete mood piece. Honestly, watching it today, it's so obvious why a studio like A24 would be circling this franchise. It feels closer to modern elevated horror than the cheesy slashers that came later. It's slow, uncomfortable, and heavy on atmosphere. Everything the folks at A24 just love, right? Hooper set the tone immediately in the OG. Black screen, harsh camera flashes, decaying corpses. It's unsettling. But the most terrifying thing is that it definitely feels like a found footage tape that you'd find on the dark web. There's almost no music, no cheap jump scares. This is just raw, hollow silence that personally I think is way scarier than any loud orchestral score building. But look, since 74 we've seen 8 sequels that have been, well, interesting to say the least. Leatherface has been everywhere, from the deep woods to the city, and most recently we saw the 2022 Netflix sequel that got, let's say, mixed reviews. But hey, look, Leatherface didn't quite make it to space like Jason, but the timeline is still a total disaster. But don't fret, this doesn't mean Leatherface is heading to the chopping block anytime soon. The rights have been in a massive tug of war for years, but A24 just beat out the big names like Jordan Peele and Taylor Sheridan to take the wheel. And look, as a massive fan of pretty much everything A24 puts out, I've got massive hopes for this series. It feels like the franchise might finally be getting the respect it deserves after all these years. But with that said, I would definitely have liked to see Jordan Peele's take on this. Now, before we get to the nitty gritty of who's behind the camera, we need to talk about what A24 is actually cooking up, because it's a double massacre whammy. It's confirmed that A24 are developing a brand new Texas Chainsaw movie alongside its teams at Spooky Pictures, Image Nation, and Exerbia Films, but that is set to be an entirely separate project from the series. From what we know, they aren't narratively connected. However, don't go buying your popcorn just yet, because the movie is set to be in early development, and they haven't even got a director attached yet. The plan is for the TV series to move forward first, letting that long-form story breathe before we get any kind of big screen outing. So if the series is the priority moving forward, well, who's involved with that? Well, this is where the tea gets really interesting, because the lineup is kind of wild. First off, Glen Powell is executive producing. Yep, Hangman from the Top Gun is helping run the show. And look, I get it. It really does feel like Hollywood is trying to push him as the next big thing, and some of the die-hard Massacre fans aren't exactly jumping for joy with this news. I mean, people were calling this a full-fledged campaign to make him likable.
Stop trying to make Glen Powell happen.
But honestly, from his recent comments on his involvement in this project, I'm gonna give him the benefit of doubt for now. He's been very vocal about the fact he's a proud Texan and the original Massacre is actually one of his favourite films. To him, it's the movie that defined horror for his home state, so he's treating it like a massive honour. He's not just showing up for a paycheck, sure. He's bringing his own production company, Barnstorm, into the fold because he truly believes they've assembled, in his words, a dream team, and they have the perfect recipe to respect their legacy while doing something new. A wonderful PR response. The production has also tapped JT Mollner to direct, the guy who wrote 2025's The Long Walk, and honestly his take on this is exactly what I wanted to hear. He basically came out and said that he's not remaking perfect movies, and he considers the original Massacre to be exactly that. A gold standard masterpiece. He's not looking to redo what Tobe Hooper already nailed. He wants to use this series as a fresh way to explore the folklore in long form structure. But the real seal of approval comes from Kim Henkel. Yeah, the guy who actually co-wrote the original masterpiece. He's been the gatekeeper of this franchise for decades. And understandably, he's admitted it was a tough call to hand over the keys, but he said A24's track record of letting artists push boundaries is what finally sold him. He recently said that he's convinced that with this specific team, they've got a real shot at making something unexpected, and teased that there's an epic tale just waiting to be told in the Chainsaw backstory. And I mean, if we get a Chainsaw prequel focused on a young grandpa, that would be incredible. But if they're going that route, we're gonna need some seriously messed up relatives to fill the void, because if Leatherface isn't the one swinging the sword yet, the rest of the family better be twice as unhinged to make up for it. So I mean, between this and the Friday the 13th prequel that A24 is working on, it feels like they're building a literal museum of horror icons, and I'm so here for it. And hey, you already know this is First Slash, so we're not just reporting the news, we're diving deep into speculative horror. So let's take a look at some of the wildest fan theories thrown around and even come up with some of our own pitches for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series. We've already mentioned we would love to see Grandpa's story explored, and honestly, this is easily one of my favourite potential directions for TCM. But let's not forget, there's a whole world of chainsaw-wielding cannibal lore out there for filmmakers to dive into. The story possibilities are practically endless, and we've only just scratched the surface. And with the amount of chatter surrounding it, I just want to focus on the series, because while a new movie is something we'll definitely deep dive into here on Oddly Horrific later, the show is where we're going to actually get that long-form exploration everyone's talking about. So it's clear that the popularity of Texas Chainsaw Massacre begins and ends with Leatherface. He's been the face of the franchise for decades, the guy doing all the dirty work from the actual killing to the creative butchery. He's basically the foundation of the Sawyer family. That said, there are a few others that deserve some love too. I mean, you've got Drayton Sawyer, the cook, who's easily one of the most interesting members of the clan. He's the only one who can actually pass for a functioning human. I mean, in the second movie, the guy is literally out there winning chili cook-offs with his main secret ingredient: his victims. He's essentially built a farm-to-table business out of his family's crimes. I mean, if that social mask he wears isn't a goldmine for a TV show, I don't really know what is. Plus, we've got Grandpa Nubbins and Chop Top. These are iconic characters, but whether it's in the movies or the games, they never really become the main focus. With A24 bringing the TV show into the mix, it feels like it's time to spotlight the origins of this cannibal clan and get a definitive look as to why they are the way they are. I mean, Grandpa is always described as the best killer the family ever had, yet in the first movie he's basically a living corpse. The man couldn't even kill a fly if he tried. Seeing a prequel version of Grandpa starting the family business, maybe back in his prime at the Slaughterhouse, well, that would be more than enough to entice viewers to see what the Sawyers were like before the 1974 nightmare. It's also a massive chance to give Leatherface a proper origin that actually ties into the main movies, or maybe even explore the traumatic history of someone like Chop Top. I mean, this guy was in Vietnam. Imagine seeing that backstory play out in A24 style. Pure horror cinema. Aside from expanding the family, this show is a chance to finally fix the absolute mess that is the Chainsaw canon. Yeah, if you're a fan of Friday the 13th, you know it has its issues, but there's still a weird logic to it. With the Sawyers, there's almost no logic outside of Leatherface himself. We've had 9 films, countless reboots, and a timeline so contradictory that it makes my head spin. After TCM Part 2, the lore just kind of stopped mattering. The 3rd and 4th movies added random Sawyers with zero explanation, and then the remake gave us a whole new family with the Hewitts. So given how messy these films are, I bet A24 is going to pull a Halloween 2018 and establish a brand new concrete timeline that only connects the 1974 original and maybe TCM2. It would sweep all that baggage under the rug and give us a fresh start. And let's be real, if anyone can take this chaotic franchise and give it a definitive masterpiece of a timeline, it's A24. But here is where it could get really interesting for the series. It would be a really cool concept if the filmmakers finally addressed the legendary line from the opening narration of TCM2. Officially on the records, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre never happened. I mean, think about it. How do you keep a family of cannibals a secret for decades? I think it would be interesting to see A24 lean into a conspiracy-driven movie rather than a pure slasher. I mean, don't get me wrong, I want to see a chainsaw-wielding maniac as much as the next guy, but we're talking about a town where the local government and police could actually be in on it. Or at least they're looking the other way because the Sawyers are doing the dirty work they think the town needs. Instead of being just a series of chases, the show could lean into the family business, and I don't just mean the barbecue. We could see how they actually maintain their way of life in rural Texas without being cool. There's a huge theory that the Sawyers weren't just random outcasts, but they were the cleanup crew for the local authorities. That's juicy. Imagine a story where the police bring their so-called problems to the Sawyer family to be dealt with. It could give the family some depth and lore to its killings, making them an essential part of the local economy in some sick and twisted way. And that would be a way to explain the social mask that Drayton wears at those chili cook-offs. He isn't hiding, he's kind of a protected local figure. Seeing those interactions with the townspeople who probably know exactly what's in their meat but are too terrified or too complicit to speak up, that would be a twisty horror vibe A24 is known for. Mwah. Beautiful stuff. But look, I just want to play devil's advocate for a second. Maybe the show won't just be from the family's perspective. I mean, after everything we've talked about with the cover-ups and the cleanup crew, there's another way you could go with this. I think there's a real chance the story could be told through the eyes of the people pursuing the family. You know, a revengeful survivor or a private investigator pursuing cold cases from the original story. It could turn the whole thing into like a gritty cat and mouse thriller instead of just waiting for the Sawyers to find a new victim. We'd be following the hunt to track down these people who officially don't exist to law enforcement. It would be a massive shift for the franchise, but seeing the family as the ones being hunted for once could be a pretty dope POV to explore. Alright, you little horror freaks, it's your turn. What's your take on where the Chainsaw franchise is headed next? Do you want to see a prequel diving into Grandpa's prime at the Slaughterhouse? Or would you watch a cat and mouse thriller where the survivor is actually hunting down the Sawyer? Or have you got your completely own idea? Leave all your best concepts and theories in the comments below, and who knows, maybe the best ones will show up on a video here on this channel. If you're vibing with our first Slash series, tell us which horror franchise we should sink our teeth into next, and I promise I won't leave you hanging, unless, you know, we're out of meat hooks. Hit subscribe and make sure you keep it locked to Oddly Horrific for more crazy theories, insane predictions, and all-out horror madness. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. I hope.